So, in one of my other videos, I used the term small fat. I got a lot of responses to that, and I realized that it's probably because most people haven't heard that term before. So, as we all know, fatness exists on a spectrum. So, fat people have created terminology that will help explain the different parts of the spectrum a little bit better. This is a little easy chart made by fatlip.ash on Instagram. A small fat is a 1 to 2x, or lower than an 18, basically. So a small fat is a 1 to 2x typically, and they're an 18 or lower, usually between a 14 and an 18. And because these people are the smallest, they're typically the more acceptable type of fat. They're also usually the ones at the forefront of the body positivity or fat liberation movement, because the smaller you are, the more privilege you have over the people who are larger than you. Then it goes mid-fat, which is a 2 to 3x, which is usually the highest sizes that most mainstream brands carry in a plus size. I'm really sorry, but I have to make a part 2 to explain the rest.
A lot of fat activists use this chart to describe the so-called levels of fatness, but this type of terminology will never take off outside of this select group of people, specifically fat acceptance advocates, that have taken it upon themselves to take pride in obesity.
We're talking about the next group, which is the superfats, or me. Being a superfat means that you are between a 4x and a 5x, or a 26 to a 32. So being in this range means you are typically the highest size that brands have to offer. I am the highest size in ModCloth and Eloquii and Target, and that exists in the highest section in Torrid as well. And then there's the infinity fat, and that is people who are a 6x or higher and higher than a 34. It's way harder for people in this category to find clothing, and if they don't fit in a Torrid 6, most of the time they have to have their clothes custom made, or small businesses and stuff, but it's a lot more difficult, and all of the issues that people who are smaller than them face, it's even worse for them. The doctors not listening, the getting passed up for jobs, the not being able to shop, everything is more difficult the larger you are.
I 100% agree that everything gets harder the larger you are, like walking, sitting, breathing, sleeping. Especially when you're talking about being a size 34 and above. You talk about having more problems finding clothes and getting jobs at that size, but getting a job should be the least of their worries at that weight. And I think if you're not trying to lose weight at infinifat size, it's not that your doctor isn't listening to you. It's that you are not listening to your doctor.
I could not agree more. People are all about supporting everybody at every size until they actually have to use terminology created by fat people. It's really telling, actually.
She's talking about the fatness spectrum from the first video, but the terminology is just bad, and you can't expect people to use it. And let me tell you something. If I referred to any fat person I know as infinifat, super fat, or even small fat, they would slap the hell out of me. And honestly, I deserve it.
I've seen a lot of people talking about Alicia's video about American Eagle and how they've stopped carrying sizes 20 and above in store. And I think that this is an important time to remind folks that some fat people never got a chance to shop at American Eagle. Like, they ended at like a 24, 26, and that's not where the fat spectrum ends. This isn't new either. Like, fat people have continued to feel gatekept from fashion in many different ways, and I think smaller fats are starting to realize how frustrating that's been, because even though you can purchase something up to a 3x, not everybody can. And what is fat liberation if it's not for all of us?
The fatness spectrum doesn't end. The infinifat category is literally infinite. And aptly named, apparently. You can't expect every brand to carry up to a 28 or 30 or above in stores. Or any brand to carry sizes above a 40. Or every size that any human could possibly be. Size 30 and up are very large sizes for a select group of people. And as I've stated before, if you are above a size 30, you have bigger, more immediate problems than not finding American Eagle jeans in your size at your local mall.
And here we have a fat phobe in their natural habitat, the comments of a happy fat person. Hey bestie, I just want to let you know that you're being really self-absorbed and fatphobic right now, and let's get into it. You are absolutely right. We did not get or stay fat simply by breathing air. Let's talk about some of the ways somebody can be fat or get fat, like genetics, medicine, being differently bodied, trauma, both emotional and physical, eating disorders that we've developed because we have a society that keeps pushing this narrative, and yes, food, and a combination of a sedentary lifestyle. Look, I'm very happy for you that you have a goal that you can achieve, but it is so self-absorbed to think that your experience with your body, with your weight, is universal and should be applied to every single situation. Every single fatphobe who has commented, stitched, duetted, whatever, has said that I have given up. I have become health-oriented, not weight-oriented. So I wish you the best of luck on your health journey, and I hope that a part of that is reevaluating these archaic notions as to what is healthy.
I don't think anything the comment said was fatphobic. You don't get fat from just breathing. For the vast majority of obese people, they are fat because of how much they are eating. Medicine and trauma may affect how much someone is eating, but their size is still directly affected by food and exercise. And while it's good you've become more health-oriented, body weight is an aspect of health, so you can't just separate your health from your size.
Okay, let's talk about how body size affects oppression. There are a lot of other factors that affect how fat people experience oppression, but right now we're talking about body size. I will address the other ones in future videos. Fatness exists on a spectrum, and there are people who experience fat oppression who exist across a very wide range of sizes. And the pattern that most people recognize is that as body size increases, so does the frequency and severity of the oppression that person experiences. In social justice spaces, we need to be centering the people who experience the most oppression. And while we don't really have that many people who practice true fat liberation, let's take a look at body positivity. If you know anything about mainstream body positivity, it is that it typically centers thin people or fat people on the smaller side of the fatness spectrum, because it's thought that they represent what's considered an acceptable version of fatness. I'm actually a good example of this, and I can explain more in part 2.
If the people at the top of the fatness spectrum were to be centered, the conversation would revolve around providing better access to healthy food for all people, and better mental health care, because that is what people that weigh 500, 600, or 700 pounds need. Not a vain discussion about how they can, in fact, be healthy at 600 pounds. And the fact that the fat acceptance movement keeps warping words used in real civil rights movements like sexism and racism to create words like sizeism and healthism is disgusting.
So when I looked it up, the weight limit for women is 185 pounds.
So this video is very misleading. Some airlines started doing random weighing of passengers for statistical purposes. Getting weighed isn't required from what I can tell, and it doesn't preclude anyone from flying.
Vocabulary that I use. Now, I didn't know what my body type was.
Just to restate, she's asking about what kind of terminology she should use to reference herself as a person who could be considered small fat, mid-size, or at the top end of straight sizes. Personally, and what I'm seeing from a lot of other body positivity creators, is just that we have a lot of frustration with the term mid-size. Activists have come up with terminology like small fat to use when we're having these discussions. And when people started popularizing the term mid-size, it kind of presented itself in one of two ways. Either straight-size people using it to distance themselves from thin privilege, and small fat people using it to distance themselves from fatness, both of which are fatphobic. I also understand if people struggle to identify with the word fat because it has had such negative connotations for so long. Reclamation can be hard for some. You get to pick the terminology you use, but this is the scale and the terms that many activists are encouraging us to use. So pause to read.
First of all, a lot of people that consider themselves mid-size, or between a size 8 to 14, are not really fat. So calling themselves a small fat may not work for them, and honestly, y'all might get angry with a woman without at least 6 visible rolls calling herself fat. Second, being fat is not always something people want to reclaim or identify with, so using a label with the term fat is something they are never going to do. Just let people use the terminology they want. And here we get an actual example of a fat acceptance advocate putting down a woman, a mid-sized woman no less, for not having enough fat rolls for her liking.
Hi, I'm Jess, and I woke up to some fatphobic comments, so let's talk about them. Starting at the bottom on my fat anime video. People in Japan actually have common sense and don't promote obesity, unlike the US. That's why Japanese people are living longer. And then followed up with, but y'all can keep thinking they're fatphobic, whatever that means. Then they jump to a different video, a video talking about how you can be body positive and still choose to lose weight. It's healthy to be fatphobic. Why would anyone want to be morbidly obese? Avoiding becoming fat is like avoiding cigarettes or drugs. Nothing wrong with being chubby or overwrought. Obesity isn't okay though. And you're blocked. But let's review. You don't understand fat phobia, but you're still confident enough to say that it's healthy. Also, I know it's unimportant, but I never became fat. I was born fat. I have always been fat. And at one point, I even abused cigarettes to try to not be fat. Fat phobia kills.
The commenter may have lacked a bit of tact, but most of what they said isn't wrong. Anime doesn't have a lot of fat people because Japan doesn't have a lot of fat people. Not wanting to be fat is not a bad thing. And just like how we warn people that certain drugs are bad for us, people should also be warned that obesity is not a healthy state to be in. And you may have been born fat, like all babies are, but it is in all likelihood your lifelong bad habits that have kept you fat. Not genetics or anything else.